Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X-Button, Season 3, Episode 6, if I'm not mistaken. I'm one of your hosts, Alejandro, and with me is my co-host...
Paul. Hey, everybody. How's it going? I don't have a special title today.
Yeah, I couldn't think of one today. And our very, very special guest...
Hey, it's me, Sebastion, from the Single Player Experience podcast. How are you doing today? How are you guys doing?
We're doing pretty good, all things considered, considering there's many hectic stuff in our lives, right, Paul?
Amen.
Yeah, so Sebastion, we had already teased that you were going to be visiting us for this week's episode, and then you visit us earlier, even in last week's episode, thanks to the Nintendo Direct. You're becoming more of a regular, which I'm very, very happy about. I love having you in.
Well, thank you. Always glad to be here. You know, like I'm sort of like a vampire into the night. You invite me in, and now I'm just I'm able to come in at will now. You know, that's how the rules work.
Eating our pantry out, just like it's a nightmare. You
yeah,
just, like,
for sure.
Feed
on the couch and everything.
That just wants to chill.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. I got a question for you, Paul. Before we begin,
what's up?
You picked up some soda. What are you drinking? What's the bubbly?
This is going to be Zevia cola flavor.
Cola
Essentially,
flavor.
it's 0-calorie soda that's like way better for you. But if you closed your eyes, this would taste like Coke. And there's like different flavors all over the place. There's one that's root beer flavored. We're out of that, but I swear it tastes just like root beer, and it does much better for my stomach. So just makes me happy.
Will that be available for your moving, Paul?
Yes, actually, that's where we found out about it. But then we found out our local grocery store also sells it. So we were like, win-win. Let's go.
Nice.
You know, Zevia, if any of you reps are listening, this is the perfect podcast to endorse right here. Yeah. You know, like we've already tested the products. We know it's great and everything like that. Let's talk business now.
Yeah.
People always say that they're too prideful to sell out. I am not. I will do just about whatever you want.
Yeah, we sell out everything, including Delsim. Remember?
Yeah.
When I was sick, I had my syrup ready.
I remember it well.
Yeah, we can rep everything because we believe in everything here that we champion. Because this is the X-Button Podcast, our gaming podcast that posts every Thursdays from 2 p.m. onwards, God willing. Available in the YouTube channel Escape Gaming, as well as most audio services around the world. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at anchor.fm/escape-gaming. If you enjoy the show, give us a like and subscribe, and you can leave a comment if you're annoyed by the chainsawing happening in my background. So, Sebastion, now you're going to be in a full episode because we usually get you in at a special episode or halfway through a recording like we did last week with Paul, where we started recording, then we did a reaction for the Nintendo Direct. You joined us halfway through that Direct, and we're like, hey, do you want to finish our recording with us? And we got you in. So our Nintendo Direct reaction is live now on YouTube, where you can see me freak out. Paul got amazing screen caps that now he can forever use.
I was very proud of those.
Yeah. That was not me playing a bit. I was legit that excited about the things that they were mentioning, including a game that I recently reviewed, Metroid Prime Remastered, where we're going into our games that we've been playing. I literally was like, started playing that. I told Paul, this is really amazing. I'm kind of shocked by this. And then over at Season Gaming, we're like, anyone buy this? And I was like, I did. Want to review it? I was like, sure, I'll review it. I had committed to play another big game that we paid for the deluxe edition that we're going to talk about here in this show. But sure enough, I'll review that one. It took me 3 days, and I beat Metroid Prime Remastered, and I tell you, that's probably my favorite. It's probably the best thing I played this year right now, but I don't want to say it's the best game of the year because it's an old game. But God, yeah. Metroid Prime Remaster was like, what was Nintendo smoking back in 2002? Or did they have like a time travel machine to have like a game that holds so brilliantly well 20 years later? Like, I sent you guys screenshots like to our chat. It's like, it's insane how it looks. We're like in the era of the Switch where we have games that barely run. Like, I mean, Pokemon. Even Bayonetta 3 last year was having like trouble like maintaining like good frame rate, like decent resolution. You look at the screenshots of Metroid Prime Remaster, and I'm like, how did Nintendo this time? Was like, they actually put effort. Like, me and Paul, like, we ranted like immensely about how poor the quality of Skyward Sword Remaster was, like how cheap, like it felt like they did the minimal viable product there, where it was like a simple remaster that still looked pretty old and really floaty. They yes, they gave us like traditional controls there, but they didn't go far, like too far to be able to like customize them and give you like a camera that actually worked. That was like, no, hold the LB button and then use the right stick to be able to move the camera. And were you choking, Paul?
I wasn't choking. I was like spilled part of the drink on the side of my face, and I was just like, oh gosh, dang it.
Yeah, good thing you're wearing a black shirt.
Get that out today. Yeah.
But yeah,
so
it was
Reps, the soda's so good that it makes him drool.
Yes.
All the drooling. He drooling listening to me gush. So, but yeah, remembering that, I was like, it felt like it was such low effort and it was $60. We always know that Nintendo, when it comes to remasters, it was like they always like overprice and they do the minimum job possible. Like Super Mario 3D All-Stars, the collection that's already dead. So the work that they put in, and at $40, even though yes, it's not the entire trilogy. You could buy the entire trilogy back in the day on Wii at a limited edition for $60. It goes for like $300 in the aftermarket right now for some reason. When you look at that, it's like I'm actually impressed that Metroid Prime Remaster exists like it is. It's like I can't recommend it high enough. It's to me, I'll say it again, Nintendo hasn't made a game this groundbreaking since.
Let me ask you something. Like, do you feel like it is closer to being a remastered, or do you feel like this is closer to being a remake with some of the new?
It's a visual remake, I would say. Okay. This is like in the vein of the Shadow of the Colossus remake we got in 2018, which is the exact same game as it was back in 2005, but with the quality of life of like better controls, and the visuals are completely redone, but they keep the spirit of the original.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like we're in this weird period of the definition of what a remaster and remake is like so muddled. God damn it. And perfect timing. So like, for example, we got Final Fantasy VII Remake, which was a completely visual remake. And on top of that, that entire game got remade that it wasn't completely at all how it used to be back in the PS1 with all they added and all that. Then we obviously got the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes that are also completely redone in visuals, and they're not the exact same games as they were back in PS1. Then we get something like Dead Space, which they have tweaked and added a few things, but 90% of that game is still true to the original. But the graphics are completely redone. So it's like, and this one, I put it more in the Shadow of the Colossus realm of all visuals redone. Especially I was watching the Digital Foundry video where they do the back and back, and I'm like, it's insane how bad the GameCube version looks, like in my mind, because when I started playing the remaster, I was like, this looks like how I remember it looking, just now in HD. This time I was like, no, they actually went above and beyond, like textures completely redone, lighting completely redone, frame rate stuck at 60 frames, which was not a problem back in GameCube. That game was like that smooth back then, which was revolutionary back in 2002. And they managed to keep that while reworking the visuals. And on top of that, being able to play a game with like an honest to goodness FPS controls. That was a game that you couldn't play at FPS, like how you would know FPS controls to be back in 2002. It was like all in one stick to turn around, to be able to like strafe, you had to be holding the lock on button and relying a lot on locking on, and the shooting was like in the front face button. So it was like, it worked for what that game was trying to do. But if you were to have played like a shooter, let's say Halo before it, or any other like a Medal of Honor and go to that, it would be a nightmare because then you have to like retrain your mind. This time around, yes, that old control scheme is there if you want to be a traditionalist, but you can play it with double sticks and it works phenomenally as a first-person shooter. And if you were always wondering how did this control when it had a Wii version, you can also play it like that, like with the two Joy-Cons.
And you said that works really well, doesn't it?
Yes, and that immediately was like, yeah, this basically tells me that Metroid Prime 3, whenever they decide to release it, they can release it as is with that control scheme because it worked perfectly. I would say even more precise than it did with the Wii. Because obviously you don't have to calibrate your Wii, and having a stupid bar in the top of the TV, there's easy recalibration. It's like, I am just shocked. I'm just actually shocked because I expect the worst from Nintendo when it comes to like re-releasing their games, and they went far above and beyond with this. Like, I hope you guys play it, like especially how cheap it is compared to other stuff in Nintendo, especially now that we're gonna be delving into the $70 range as we saw with Tears of the Kingdom. Like, this is a must buy. Like, if it comes physically, I think this week they're selling it early, because they said that it was going to be available on the 22nd. So if you want to go the physical route, it should be there. I tell you, this is the best game on the Switch. Even if it's 20 years old, it doesn't look like that. This like craps a lot on that library. So.
Thank you, everybody, for coming in for Alejandro's TED Talk about Metroid Prime Remastered.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I'm feeling like, and you can read my review over at seasongaming.com. Like, spoilers, I gave it a 9.5. I wanted to give it a 10, but they're prickly about when we give 10s over there. This would have been a 10 out of 10, like if I was reviewing it by myself, but under their rubric, this is a very sensational release. So
that's great.
Yeah. So Sebastion, tell me about Arcane Vale.
Arcane Vale. Have you here's
Why
the general.
I have not heard about Arcane Vale. So.
No one has. No one has. And like this game flew underneath the radar. It was released late last year. This game is like a game that sort of combines like Skyrim. It combines Skyrim with a little bit of a bit of like Dark Souls kind of vibe to where like Demon Souls kind of vibe to where it combines those, but it has a 2D atmosphere to where like
top down 2D here, right?
Kind of, yeah. So yeah, one of the general things about this game, like giving you the general pitch, is like you are not like just like Oblivion. You're not like the prophesied one. You're not out there to try to save the world. You're just simply a random person trying to just do simple quests and become like whatever you want to be. If you want to be a strong warrior, you can do that. If it has a Stardew Valley element to where you can create your own house, start a farm, you can do all that. But like what really drew me to this game is like the game mechanics of like in Skyrim, you level up different mechanics. So whatever you using them. Yeah, by constantly using them. It's the same system here. It's just so if I want to be a better swordsman, I just play with my sword. If I want to do I didn't mean that by that way, but like if I wanted to if I want to be like an axeman, if I want to do magic, I level that up by constantly using those. But I think one of the coolest things about this game is like it is such a grounded experience. It's almost like everything in this world at first can kill you very easily, including like the rats and everything like that. Versus like Skyrim, you start off, you're underpowered, but you're still kind of overpowered versus a lot of the small rats and crabs and everything like that. Here, like you are the absolute bottom of the barrel and you kind of have to claw your way up. And the game has realistic quests that make sense, that feel like the games were written. I like the fact that as you like level up your different stats and different things like that, like people actually start to know your name, and based on like the quest that you do in this area, the world kind of evolves as you kind of progress. It's not like, hey, like I did a quest so that one person who I did the quest for knows me. It's like, hey, you did a quest, you become so well known. Hey, can I be like a guy will come up to you? Can I be your apprentice? Like, hey, can I go on your journey with you? Just because like you did a quest that I dreamed of doing, like that accomplishment that I dreamed of doing. So I'm like, there's so many little nuances. And the reason why I say it's Souls like esque as well is like when you die, and you will die, this game will kick your teeth down your throat. But like when you die,
do you lose like your currency, weapons, sort of like something like that?
You lose all your gear. You have to get your gear back. You have to go back to the exact spot where you died at, and then you
like
can
a
just
roguelike almost.
Yeah, very much so. You lose all your gear, but like you still get to keep your currency, and you still get to keep your like all the spells and all the different things you've learned. You just got to go back and retrieve that gear. So I'm like, if you had a legendary sword, you got to go back and get that legendary sword. And if maybe you could pick up a different sword along the way to like that. Until you can get to that spot. But like another thing that's Skyrim-esque about this game is it's a huge open world. Like it's not just a roguelike to where you're playing in a small maybe like 4 or 5 different areas,
set of missions, something like that,
or biomes or anything like that. And it's not like that. This game is like there's a complete desert part that's just as big as Pokemon Violet and Scarlet. There's complete like towns and cities and everything like that, and there's civilization. So I'm like, it reminds me so much of like an open world Skyrim mixed with Dark Souls, mixed in with like that Zelda kind of gameplay, like retro 2D style Zelda gameplay.
And I saw this game came out like mid-December last year to Steam. I wonder if they're planning on doing like a console release, because that sounds cool.
I'm gonna be honest, I've never played anything quite like it, especially in the 2D space. What were you saying, Paul?
Oh, I wasn't actually I was about to say something. I didn't say anything yet. Did you ever play a game called Kingdom Come Deliverance, Sebastion?
Yeah.
that's what makes me think, as far as the moment to moment and the grounded nature of it, where it's like you upgrade by doing the things, but you suck. Like you are just a peasant dude that can get wrecked by anything. But then all of a sudden you kind of blink after 10 hours and you're like, wait, I'm kind of competent now. Hang on a second. But then similarly, it's like really grounded aspect of things. And I went through, what was it, like 2 years ago, I think, Alejandro, that I went back and replayed it on console.
Yeah, it was last year because it was like $6.
Year?
Yeah, it was $6.
Okay, cool.
In one of these summer sales.
Because that would have actually gone up to my like honorable mention, because I don't think the console version was out at launch, if I'm not.
It was. PC and console was up, but this was 2018. That was
that was a while ago. But yeah, because I enjoyed the heck out of that. So this is like not as much my aesthetic, but I love the concept of how wide and expansive it is and how it just lets you kind of do your thing. And so that's really cool that there are gems like that still in this day and age of people obsessed with AAA games, that you can like really find something that people put some real effort into.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's like, you know, like everything kind of makes sense if you chop wood with an axe, so to speak. You not only get to like build like your wood chopping skills, because that is a skill on itself. You also build your skills with an axe. So if you like have axes that you want to use in battle, like that translates over. If you build up your skills with a sword and then you decide I want to use like daggers, or I want to use this sword for like skinning fish, that skill translates over to your like mundane task as well. So I'm like, everything kind of makes sense. And like, don't get me wrong, the game doesn't have like a main story that's going to hook you. So if you're a person who like needs a strong narrative, this game ain't going to be for you. But if you want a game that is very much centric on you, like starting off small, working your way up, and living like your best life according to the way you want to live it, this is a really good game in that regard.
Funny enough, for Paul, that works because he gets especially on where he is in his life, and because he's always next to his wife, like with headphones and putting them out and all that conversation, he can't really get into like many story games. Like I'm thankful he was able to get into God of War Ragnarok. Gave him all the gameplay heavy games, and that's gonna sell him. So
a lot more so.
Yeah, this game is like the perfect Steam Deck game. Like I haven't played a game that defined the Steam Deck quite like this before.
Right now that you mentioned, I was like, God damn! Like I wish that this could at least come to Switch, because it seems like something that could run.
Oh, yeah, I think this is on Switch now.
Is it?
I think this is on Switch now. Like I've been playing it on PC and Steam Deck, but I think this is now on Switch, or is coming to Switch very shortly.
For Switch. Oh, no, it's Archvale, the one that's on Switch. Because is it similar? Because this one's Arcane Vale. That one is Archvale.
Make sure you spell it in the specific way that it's
Arcane Vale. Arcane Vale.
Yeah. It's not
not quite. Quite.
I'll look it up. But this seems like these are the kinds of games you want to handle on, just to be here, put it there. It's that does something. That doesn't do sort of put this in my radar. I'm hoping for the next like indie showcases to eventually feature this, because this just came out. It's kind of like when the favorite game from our friend Zach Paul Omori was like a PC game that eventually made it to Xbox. So yeah.
I think if people start playing this game's going to be huge. Like it has that potential.
So now, Paul, before we talk about like your games, just
y'all can jump back into yours.
Yeah, just a quick mention that for some reason I was like in a nostalgia kick and went back to the original Infamous and Infamous 2. I beat the original Infamous in like 2 days because I just know how to quickly play that game. The visuals of that game are rough to go back to, but my God, I miss that era where now we got the glut of superhero games that we can, and now that we can know that people are gonna take the licenses and giving them the love, time, and care that they deserve, like we saw with Spider-Man. Infamous was like, we have no superhero games, we're gonna do one original one ourselves with like a character that's basically Static Shock, and that game's story still hits. Like it's very dark and a nice inversion of like a very classic Reverse Flash story of like a villain trying to make a hero suffer enough tragedy to become better to face what's coming ahead. And I remember the twist experiencing that back in 2009. I'm like, man, I wish this could be remastered. Like it could be like painted modernly so people could experience it again. Right now, like I will say this, like it's on PS Plus Premium. That's where I played it, like all through streaming. it looks a little grimy on the stream, but it played really well. So if you have a really good internet connection and you've never experienced that and are at least a little curious, and you could put yourself in the mindset that, yeah, this looks kind of old, I think it's worth playing. And I started playing the second game just to kind of like keep it flowing, but I don't think I'm going to continue right now because it's kind of what I told you, Paul. Is like that game requires you to do a little bit more side stuff to unlock the cool stuff compared to the first one. I'm like, I need to play another game right now. And but before we talk about that one, I told you, like, even though I may have unsold you a little bit, Paul, on Hi-Fi Rush based on where I was,
yeah,
I did beat it. And then I told you, I think Sebastion was right because Sebastion mentioned that was like the best game of 2023 so far. And then when I beat it, I was like, yeah, I think that is. And that was what convinced you, right?
I didn't I'm trying to remember because I knew I was going to go back to it because I played it for like a little bit. I really liked it. We kind of chatted a little bit about it, I think. Yeah,
you specifically mentioned, I think it was even in the show, saying that you felt you had played everything it had.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So you didn't think like you had that motivation.
It's funny because I said that and then immediately started doing more unique things in like the next mission. It was just that I was at the end of like one of the security missions because it felt like the pacing for me slowed down a little bit right before you got Corsica as like a party member, because it felt like there were like one chapter that just not as much happened as everything else in the whole rest of the game, and I was just like, oh, okay, it's kind of running out of steam for me. I'm gonna go play Forspoken for a second, and then I just dropped the heck off of that game. Played a little bit more Hogwarts Legacy, and then I was just like, I knew I was going to go back to it eventually, and then you mentioned how you were like, oh no, this is actually really good. Mm-hmm. And I went, all right, fine, I'll go back and see what's going on. And of course, like the next chapter was just like really cool, everything up until the end. But that
game ends real strong. Like
it does.
It really, like, especially because when I stopped playing, when we started recording last week, was that fight with the singing robot that you start with dressed as the shark from like that Katy Perry Super Bowl.
I didn't realize it was so blatant where they're just like, left shark, where's left shark? I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I feel like that boss was a little too frustrating. She wasn't getting too many hits, and then her shield would pop up, and then like she would start like jumping and all the lasers, and I would start getting desperate and not trying to hit like with rhythm. So that's what I was getting frustrated then. But every chapter from that moment on was like so epic. Like that moment where like to me, the moment that I was like, ooh, I'm really loving this, was when everyone came together to fight that big robot.
Oh yeah,
the big robot, that you control the little robot a little bit as you're trying to get
obviously
the
for anybody, spoilers for Hi-Fi Rush's story, but you're really there for the experience, trust me.
Yeah, and then when you're then what happens when you're like trapped? Let's just put it that way, and the swelling of that moment, like mixing all the music together and the hype and the vibe, the kind of what I was mentioning, Paul, the positive vibe that this game exudes like at every moment. Yeah. That then leads to
unapologetically positive.
Yeah, and then the amazing final boss fight with that Virgil looking dude from DMC, where he got like the full armor. I was like, this seems like Virgil from Devil May Cry. and then I noticing that there's even more to that game afterwards that you can like double back to do like all the challenges.
Like a whole like subplot that says, all right, go back through and you can go unlock new things for the story because now things are active here. And I almost wish that they had given you the customization options before you finish the game, because so many people I feel or fear are not going to like engage as much with that. But if they'd found
I feel this is the Super Mario Odyssey problem.
Yeah, basically.
Because a whole game unlocks after you beat Odyssey, but it's like after you beat it. So it's like you have to like mentalize yourselves like, no, there's more to do after you basically quote unquote roll credits. And there was a lot to do in Mario Odyssey. Like
more than probably in the main game, I'd say.
No, it is. And all the creativity that was put like in basically the end game. So, but other than that, it was like Hi-Fi Rush is like, I'd see it now when you were saying it, Sebastion, that it was like the best game like so far that I played this year, and it still feels that way. Obviously, I mentioned like with the caveat that I really love playing Metroid Prime, but that's a remaster from an old game. Like if we're talking about 2023 releases, Hi-Fi Rush right now is like up there. Even though this game that we're gonna talk about, like in the little that I played, could be a contender. So
So here's what I'll say is like I don't think Hi-Fi Rush is going to be the game of the year, obviously, but I do think if there's an award for like most bang for your buck, it's probably going to be this game at the end of the year, because this is a $30 game, and this is a $30 game. It's on Game Pass as well, but like the fact that it has so many pop culture references, the fact that like the music is good, the fact that like this game was shadow dropped, all the elements of this game, like this game's got references to Vice City if you look for them. It's got references to to like anime, to Kanye West, to Katy Perry. It's got Scott Pilgrim's like shoes in the game.
Yeah, the Scott Pilgrim thing, like I immediately, because I love Scott Pilgrim so much.
Yes, it's got the Evil Within mirror in this game. It's also got Twin Peaks, like the way they snap and everything like that. Like I've not seen so much love put into a game of this like magnitude, to where like they stuff so much into like a smaller package and try to make the most out of that. And then it combines so many elements from games that we're familiar with, like Kingdom Hearts, like Devil May Cry, like Guitar Hero. It combines so many elements of like games that we've played over the last 15 years, and it feels like a love letter to like that generation of gamers. So I'm like, I don't necessarily think this is going to be game of the year, but I can't think of a game that's even coming out that's going to be on this level as far as like bang for your buck. Though
I'm gonna try like so hard this year to always try to remember this game, that it deserves its props, especially like when we did top 10 most anticipated games earlier this year. We were talking about like the importance of Starfield for like Xbox, for example, because we had been waiting for Xbox to like deliver something worthwhile. Out of nowhere, we got something worthwhile out of them, completely out of left field from them, that it's the shot in the arm they needed. Something being like, yeah, we're known as our meat and potato shooter console, and we reused that ad nauseum, but look the potential of all the acquisitions we've done, what we can get, that's just here, and also on PC. And I feel for Xbox, like, in case Starfield like fails, let's hope it does, and I hope it hits, I feel like they already got like a big case for what they can give to the market with Hi-Fi Rush.
I think to further that point, like I think if Starfield fails or whether it succeeds, regardless, I think like at the end of the day, if Xbox is smart about this, Hi-Fi Rush and with Chai and the gang here, like Chai is going to resonate with so many more people, like because he is actually a face. Whereas in Starfield, it's a create your own character adventure. Like it's hard to market those kind of games and hard to market that as being the face of like a franchise, so to speak.
This feels like the start for like the next generation phases of Xbox that they've needed since the Marcus Phoenix and Master Chief days.
And I'm gonna be honest, this got potential to supersede both of those as being the new face of Xbox as far as IP goes, as far as recognition goes, because like Chai has a likable aesthetic, and like it's, if they market this correctly, this could be the next franchise to where people will say like, oh, that's the Xbox mascot now. You know, like Master Chief, like doesn't have a personality. Let's be real about it. He has like,
they've tried.
No,
they've certainly tried.
And even in Infinite, they tried to humanize him, but like it's hard to relate to someone when they have a helmet on, and we constantly can't get that one-on-one connection here. Chai can be their Crash Bandicoot. He can be their Mario, so to speak. Like there's so many good things that they can get out of this. So, you know, kudos to Xbox, kudos to Tango Gameworks, because like if Xbox plays their cards right, this is the beginning of something special.
Yeah, piggybacking off of what you were saying for sure, because the time moves ever forward and the world still spins, and as we see it, all the kids nowadays aren't going to resonate with the things that we all resonated with when we were younger. Like, as much as we want that to be the case, people will know of it, but their connection won't be the same way, especially if the games stop being made. All they'll be able to do is, the only kids that will play it are the ones that love that enough to go back and find it, rather than it just, hey, a new one shows up. Like, you have your Pokemon, it had such onboarding points throughout several year gaps that several generations could find their own favorite, their own first. And that's what the great series do. Every few years they have a new onboarding point. You don't have to go back to the original stuff. Something like your Halos and maybe Gears of War has really tried to find that with
God of War.
Gears 5, God of War, exactly.
I don't think Halo did a good job at it, though, to be
that's
honest.
what I mean,
Yeah.
is they didn't, because everything that you really want to do is if somebody plays a new version, you're like, no, don't go play that, go play the original. And everyone's like, I don't want to go play that. Like, then we shouldn't expect people to step that far back. Just the way you don't have to force people to watch certain classic movies or classic books or whatever, because there's a certain amount of time and you just can't resonate the same way you could with
kind
that.
of like what Disney wanted to do with Force Awakens, with like a new beginning for Star Wars or something like that.
And like it's going to try to resonate with a lot of people, but the reality is that it's just not going to hit the same way. And as to your point, Alejandro, with the Star Wars thing, kids are still like the sequels more than the prequels if you ask many of the young ones, because they don't have any benchmark for what that was. They don't really care. They like these characters that they watched first when they were kids. Same point kind of coming full circle with this. Chai and the gang, if they play their cards right, just like you said, Sebastion, this is that marketing opportunity where everyone's talking about it. It's bright, it's colorful, it's kid friendly, it's a Devil May Cry that a kid can play. It's amazing. It's exactly what you're kind of looking for.
It's completely different from what we usually do. That's what they need to push with Xbox, being like, you haven't like boxed us in, pun intended, into being like the shooter box. Look what we can do. I think that should be like the big push they have to do with Hi-Fi Rush, and so glad for that game. But enough of that, because Sebastion, we brought you in because Hogwarts Legacy is finally upon us, and it's definitely taken the world by storm. 1.2 million views over on Twitch. It's like it has sold 80% more than Elden Ring over in the UK already, like at launch. It's like everything, when I look at my friend list, it's all everyone's playing. And it's so like a lot of we see online, it's like a lot of people are using it to grandstand to those that are playing it and calling them names, ignoring all the garbage that's like surrounding this. In short, what do you think of Hogwarts Legacy? You start.
I think this is just another example of when you do a licensed game well, like there's nothing like it in the world. There's nothing like that recognition, and there's nothing like the fan base that will show up if you do a licensed game really well. So I think this game is good. I don't think this game is great. I don't think it's perfect. I think this is a very good licensed game, though.
So, Paul.
I think, just like you said with the license side of it all, it's when you break it down on its merits alone, without the connection to the IP, I don't think it holds up. I want to get that off to start in its own little box, that we clarify that side of it. If you're really into Harry Potter, I think it was Jason Schreier that said it today, Alejandro, if you saw that post. It's like, this thing isn't anti-Semitic, it's just dull.
Yeah.
And that was like a really great through point, but then he kind of expanded from there. It's like, if you are connected to Harry Potter and that's like your thing and you've been waiting for that kind of a game, it's going to resonate with you a lot because of that fact. But on its own, it's bloated, it's convoluted, and it's just kind of basic on a story sense, and then kind of feels like I'm giving it a disservice in some ways, because at the same time, I'm one of those kids that does frankly enjoy the heck out of finally getting to live through this world that was created and I lived through as a kid. I'm loving the way the spells are worked. I love flying around on a broomstick. It just feels great. But I also have to not just look at it from a nostalgic eye that just like, hey, look, this is a working Harry Potter game. Woohoo. And look at it as, well, it's, if you really see it the way it is, it's just kind of okay.
So, how many hours have you put into it?
17 now.
Okay. I'm about there too. I think I'm hit the 20-hour mark.
Alejandro's at 4, and I do want to say that I'm giving it such a disservice in some ways. Where like, if you like what you're seeing, you're probably going to enjoy it throughout that whole time. And I would still say it's like it's still beating Forspoken for me, by a good margin. Frankly, I hate to say that.
No, that's a fact. It is a better game.
I was about to say it's not hard to do.
I love the voice acting performances are like really good across the board, honestly. So I could just kind of sit there and listen to them talking like in British speak for me, and I'm like, it's fine, whatever.
To me, how I see it, even though I play way less than you guys because I was stuck in other stuff, just like on that initial impression, like if you are a Harry Potter like fan, like a big fan,
Yeah.
I feel this game is what I wanted Jedi Fallen Order to be at launch. Because let's not forget, Paul, like we absolutely love Jedi Fallen Order. Obviously, it came after a time that we had such a massive drought of even having like a good Star Wars game. That a game that was objectively fine became great because of how well they used the license. And I feel like Hogwarts Legacy has that kind of vibe that by itself it's fine. It's a good game, but on top of like how well it like portrays its license and like the amount of polish that I've noticed, even though like heading into it, I had heard that there were like technical issues and all of that. From what I played, this game feels pretty polished so far. I don't know. I haven't fallen from the world. I haven't seen like animation jank and all that. I feel like this is the kind of like time, love, and care you always want your licensed product to have, and to me that's tough because to me Harry Potter, from like if we have to like rank all the like nerdy stuff that's out there, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Marvel, DC, Game of Thrones, even throwing it out there, to me Harry Potter is at the bottom. Like, ooh, yeah, like Harry Potter, because I hate having been born at a Christian house where I had a preacher as a father during the hysteria time of like engaging with that stuff is satanic and blah blah blah, which is so funny looking back because then we've seen all the movies since then and we realized it's not that bad after I was an adult. So I didn't grow up at the right time, like when I know that a lot of people grew up with this for this to become like their favorite thing. So I'm looking at this just like when I'm removing myself from like being like a super fan and say that what they've done is like, if I was a fan, like I know many are like that have such fans that then like when the author said a few things that may or may not have been like worth like the ire of many, you can reasonable minds can differ. You can go read with the things that she said and all that. Is like they feel fired because of their passion towards this world and this IP. If I was that, this would be the dream game. It's like this is the kind of like love and care I want from like licensed games. That the only ones that I can say is comparable is Spider-Man. And with that one, you can cheat a little bit because Spider-Man had the exclusive like focus of like a first party resources. This was a multi-platform game that can stand toe to toe with the love and care that they put into this. They've been working on this game, from what I've read, for like almost 7-8 years. I think you can see it on the screen. Exploring Hogwarts, like just the tiny details like that. I saw it in the TikTok that I sent you, Paul, but I went to it myself. Just getting by the knights armor that then one just like kicks the crap out of it. It's just like such amazing tiny detail. Like I've been seeing videos because I picked Hufflepuff because of my decision. So you're Hufflepuff too, right, Sebastion?
Oh yeah. So, always down with the Hufflepuff.
Yeah, so I'm kind of glad because I heard that the Hufflepuff has an amazing Azkaban quest that's exclusive to them. So,
it's decent. It's overblown, but it is very decent.
Yeah, compared to like what other ones could have. So I was like, okay, that's good that I picked that. So I don't have to like replay the game. Just like from what I remember when I finally watched all those movies, like for the first time back in like 2016 in the lead up to Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I was like, man, it's like, if only all the licensed games like could feel like this, like because obviously we got something like Shadow of Mordor. That's a Lord of the Rings games, but it's not at all in the spirit of the Lord of the Rings. It's like this weird alternate fantasy of what it actually is, and even in tone and vibe, even though it's still a pretty good game by itself. I'm hoping Jedi Survivor, like from what I've seen, if you're looking at the IGN first, that they're doing a preview of Jedi Survivor, that it feels like, yes, Kyle still runs like he has to stick up the butt, or something like that. He definitely wants to go to the bathroom. I don't know if you've seen the running animation.
He does like hunchback
of Survivor, but everything else that I'm seeing of that game, I'm like, oh, they're finally, EA gave Respawn the time and money. They allowed them to delay the game slightly so they can get like a real polished product. So it's not like Jedi Fallen Order that had a lot of good things, and then you get T-post animals pop in, all the frame rate jank, weird looking Wookiees that look like what do you say you look like, Paul? Remember we were talking about the Wookiees?
Oh shoot, I don't even remember.
Yeah, I remember you said something that was real funny about like those Wookiees.
Oh man, like I remember it, and I could not tell you what it was, but I can see the image, and I remember we were talking about it, and it was just, they look terrible, frankly.
Yeah, they look like a mopping floor, like something you would mop the floor with. Because there was a lot of that game that clearly felt cheap in a way that when I look at Hogwarts Legacy, it doesn't feel cheap. And I feel that really elevates the package if you're a real big Harry Potter fan, which I wish I was. I wish I could go back to a time where I could actually watch these movies as they came out. I only saw Goblet of Fire when it launched, and then Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, and never, like everything in between. I knew things, but never watched them. So, Sebastion, you grew up with Harry Potter, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Not only did I grow up, I mean, I could probably get a 100 question quiz right now and probably at least get 99 of those. I'm a pretty massive Harry Potter fan. Like, I even read fan fiction every once in a while. Exactly. Like, I reread the books every year.
Yeah, exactly. So this is exactly for you. And
in a way,
it is. Yeah, in a way, it is.
I will say, you were talking about Jedi, like in the sense of the way that game plays, and the sequel is probably going to play. Like, I still think that's a better licensed franchise than this game, and I'm going to be honest here. Like, this, even though they did a lot of things right, it almost feels like this game is still, like, while it's extremely polished, it feels half baked, if that makes sense. Because, like, really? Even for I mean, like you're 4 hours in, and you're also, like, not the hugest Harry Potter fan, but, like, if you look at the list of spells as you play the game, like, as you get, like, deep into it, it's not like you're getting a wealth of spells here. As a matter of fact, like, a lot of key spells that were, like, introduced into the world, like into Harry Potter's world, are missing. You know, like, a lot of those are missing. Like, a lot of you mentioned Azkaban, but a lot of, like, the enemies that you associate with Harry Potter are missing.
Dementors and all that, they're not here in the game.
I mean, you know, like, I don't want to. There's Centaur, but you don't fight them.
No, you don't.
No, you don't fight the Centaurs. Like, there are bandits, and, like, it's almost like, you remember how, like, Fable had, like, one of the criticisms of Fable was, like, especially early on, was, like, it feels like there was very few enemy varieties. This game,
I've heard about this one. That this game doesn't have. It also has the God of War 2018 problem with the enemy variety. That game
that's a good example, honestly, because it does spread them out a little bit after a while, but then there is a certain point, especially once you've reached being allowed to just traverse the open world, that you've pretty much seen every variation of any enemy that you're going to see, and usually they're just going to send you, like, 2 or 3 of all of them at you in every encounter. And for the most part, that's like, well, now you're just going to get slightly more efficient with your own combat. But, like, not to segue into that, but my goodness, is it frustrating, especially once you have all your cool spells, that you can't use hardly any of them unless you just switch between them on the fly in a very, I don't know,
convoluted
frustrating
way.
Yeah. And it's just, it's clumsy. That's the word. Because I can never, like, get my muscle memory right, because you're always iterating on, like, maybe if I put this one over here and then my purple spells over here, maybe that'll make it easier to synergize. In reality, it's just you're going through and just flinging everything at every enemy, and it just kind of feels a little messy.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I mean by half baked. It's because like the spell usage is like it's like when you start off early on in the game, like it's really good because you'll have so few spells to actually work with. But once you start getting,
I have felt real good to use.
They
starts off feeling great, and then as you get more and more of them, there's slight variations on what they're supposed to do. Like, for instance, the difference between Expelliarmus and Confringo kind of feel like the same spell after a while.
Very much so.
Because, like, Expelliarmus is the idea that you can disarm somebody, and then there's an ability you can, like, grab what they dropped and throw it out, and that was really cool. I like that. But they're both, like, just simple attack spell animations. And then there's just kind of the idea that it's something that feels like it should be better than it really is. Like, imagine, if you will, I feel like I'm going to be a broken record on this. You institute the styles of Devil May Cry on the D button, and that switches the types of spells you do. So all you have to do is just up, down, left, right, and then you're just going to town.
R2, because in R2 you do just everything.
Right. So it's either you almost need to consolidate more or give a more efficient way of switching between so many spells. And even I know somebody says like, oh, look at the comparison between the spells of Hogwarts Legacy and Elden Ring for like 28, 26 spells versus like 140. But Elden Ring, you kind of only work with 5 at a time at the max.
Yeah,
and you
and
just
you have to spec to them. If you want to use other ones, you have to like completely like build up arcane and all of those stuff.
No, but I mean, 5 is still more than you're able to use in Hogwarts Legacy at one given time.
That's a good point, but it's faster to switch between the 4 to another 4 to another 4. But then I think that's the problem that gets me. Is it's fine when it's that radial menu, but when you have to switch further beyond that and you're not entirely sure where each one might be, can kind of get a little convoluted on where that works. Plus, adding the utility spells that also need to be added to hotkeys. It feels like, you know, when you play an MMO and you have to like switch to between 4 to 6 different radial menus for all your skills.
I remember that from DC Universe Online.
Way too much after a while. I think that's the problem that hits me, because that just doesn't feel good after a while, and it hurts because in the moment to moment, I find I enjoy myself more when I work with just those 4 spells and don't even try to use more than that. Like I pick one at a time and then I just kind of work with that. And then use basic spells and dodges in between rather than try to switch between all. And
then if you eventually get Avada Kedavra, you basically like destroy everything in the game.
No, right? I mean, not to spoil anything, but like it gets worse because like the spells that you're getting are almost they're first year spells, second year spells. I'm like, in Harry Potter, in the books and in the movies, like you've seen like how they actually advance into magic. Like this game gives you the illusion that you're a 5th year, but like you spend the whole time learning 1st, 2nd, and maybe 3rd year spells.
Yeah, that's such a strange decision that they start you as a 5th year student, right?
Yeah, and I mean that's really strange.
Because they probably wanted to age up your main character for the really messed up crap that goes down in the series. Excuse me. Where they can kind of get away with a little bit of it, but it's like if you have a 10-year-old that's like facing off in constant duels against dark arts magicians and you're like, or wizards and witches, you're like, I don't know if I believe this 10-year-old is doing
it makes
all
sense,
that.
especially like if you look at it from like the Harry Potter perspective from like books/movies, that things got real in Goblet of Fire and Order of the Phoenix. And
they ramp up. I mean, look at, and you mentioned Order of the Phoenix. Look at what Dumbledore and Voldemort were able to do to each other.
Yeah, and year like 5,
that was cool stuff. They were doing some wicked stuff. But even like, I mean, imagine they're like kings on the chessboard, so to speak. Right. Like they're actually like the baddest of bad. But like when you look at everyone else that was in like the Order of the Phoenix battle, like Sirius Black, Bellatrix Lestrange, like Lucius Malfoy, I'm like they were throwing heavy hitter spells at like other people, and like. Here we only know like the basic spells from the first through 3rd years, and then they're missing some key spells that like are shown off in the Harry Potter lore, like the Bat Bogey Hex. Like that's a Ginny Weasley spell where like it creates those bat boogers off of the side of the head. That would have been a cool game, like one to introduce. Hermione like uses Avius, which is like where she summons birds and like they attack people. That is a spell made for a video game. And
it's not in the game.
No, not at all.
Even something Reducto is used against you, and you're not able to use it against anybody else at all. Which that was like the disintegration spell that Ginny used in Order of the Phoenix.
Yep,
and it was a pretty constant one used after that too.
Oh yeah, Aguamente. I mean, like the way, like just the fact that you could summon water. I'm like, think about the cool like combos you could have used with like Aguamente and different things like that. Here's another one that I think would have really been cool, like the whole art of transfiguration. They only introduced transfiguration so that you can like make and kind of rearrange different things in one area, and that's like the room of requirements. Outside of that, you do not use transfiguration, despite like
there's a combat spell, isn't it? There's a transfiguration spell. You can transform people into items.
That's it. That's it.
There's one spell. That's the same yellow type.
That was the one from that video that I showed you, right? Paul, of someone using a different magic that transforms someone like a big spider. Remember that one? Yeah.
Oh no, that one was that's your ancient magic. That's going to be something completely different. So the lightning, the thing where you shrink the spider and step on it, all that, it's the same spell actually on a rotator of what happens whenever it goes. That's like your ultra move with the R1L1. So it has an option of either doing the lightning, doing the thing if you're fighting spiders specifically. You can pick somebody up and slam against the ground, or it's like a default, like I shoot this and then they just freaking explode.
Yeah. But that's an ultimate move.
Rotator. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
it's an ultimate move.
Do the cool things like calling lightning whenever you want. It's just like hit the button. Is it going to be the cool thing or is it going to be something else? So that's kind of a shame. Is in videos I was like, oh shoot, I can't wait to learn that spell. That looks really awesome. And it's like, you're not going to do that.
But why couldn't you? Is that we saw it in videos. That's the thing.
That's what I mean. Like you can do it. It's just it's
an ultimate move.
It's an ultimate move that's on a random rotator of what happens when you use it.
You're not in control of like when you're actually able to use those kind of spells. And I think that's like Paul and I's point is like the way this game feels lacking is a sense that like, sure, you have one transfiguration spell, but like the rest of them you only can use and it basically changing aesthetics. And then like that's a complete art to where like Moody, Mad-Eye Moody in the movies and the game transformed Draco Malfoy into a ferret. Like I'm like, yeah, McGonagall, she is a master at doing those kind of things, and so is Dumbledore because he was a teacher of transfiguration. I'm like,
imagine if you could transform yourself into like an animal and fight.
I kind of get where the criticism goes because it's like when you're playing like something like Marvel's Avengers that you have like your alt moves that were in the L1 or R1 and all that. It feels like a lot of those magics are now like in similar kind of like cooldowns instead of something that's constantly used.
You just mentioned it, Paul, but like you can't even transform into an Animungus in this game. I'm like, that is like one of the things that like Sirius Black and all the Marauders learned while they were still in school. And I'm like, while they were still in school, and I get it, that's sort of a rare thing. But if this is an RPG and it's a video game, at least let us at least let you level up to try to like become
even like spells that let you do it. And that's why like McGonagall could do it. There's like magic can do literally anything almost, but that's, I think, to make it full circle, is that's the point of it being so half-baked, where it's like, yeah, it looks like you can do a lot. The reality of it is you're just kind of like, you can move people forward or backward, you can stop them, you can then just hit them with various colors until the battle's over, and you can make it as cool as you want, similarly to most hack and slash games. And I'm gonna definitely say, like, it's still pretty fun to sit there and do that a few times, like over and over again, especially like the fighting arenas. Like those are super fun, where you just get surrounded by enemies and you're just freaking dueling, throwing things around, deflecting things and shooting back.
Like if it's like Batman
really
Arkham,
fun to watch.
Batman Arkham games almost.
No, Batman Arkham does it better though.
Obviously, but it's kind of like that idea of the press triangle at a specific moment to get the kind of counter, in a way.
Yeah. And in some areas, especially when you have augments to your spells through the talents window. Excuse me. Oh my gosh, that Coke came back with a vengeance. Especially whenever you unlock the different talents, it gives you a lot of variety in how your spells are augmented, and it changes how things work. You get passive like firewalls around you. You get extra gathering power to pull multiple enemies to you. You get more things that shoot off from an enemy you hit into other enemies, and that's kind of fun. But at the same time, it's like, it's just kind of a pain in the butt. And then if we wanted to separate out from combat into quality of life in general, you have the way that you level up and challenges being things you have to actively go into and accept to get the rewards for them.
Terrible.
Has so many people getting so frustrated because they don't clearly explain that concept to you, except maybe once, and say, yeah, make sure you go check the challenges tab and you can go do X, Y, and Z after you find this item or whatever. And so many people forget that is even like an option. I almost forgot it was an option for the longest time. The way you get The freaking loot pool. It's a looter shooter concept with the green, blue, purple, orange.
Oh, I love that.
I know, and it's so frustrating because they
It's
give you an
tedious.
entire upgrade concept and like ability in the room requirement to upgrade your stuff, and then you're just going to get something better the second you go out and find a chest. And it's like, what's the point of all this like upgrading and do this, do that? You have to sell things. You only have 20 inventory slots that you have to deal with. And that part doesn't even really bother me all that much, except for the fact that if you try to open a chest with full inventory, it deletes the item you opened. It doesn't
for sure.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes I've been able to like, oh shoot, that like I had full inventory. Let me delete something and open it back up. And that happened once, that I was allowed to open the chest a second time. But every other time, you just can't open your chest anymore.
I restarted checkpoints just because like I had my filled up inventory slot, and then I go into my like items
that
thing.
would drive me up a wall because I love like always looting a lot. So
yeah. And I see which gear is like the lowest value gear, and I just destroy it on the spot, and then I'll go pick up a couple of items because now I know like how many items I have like that's in that chest available that I can pick up. But like it is terrible. It deletes it on the spot. No Quidditch in this game, by the way, but you're able to go on the Quidditch field and do trials. I'm like,
yeah, I saw videos of everyone going through like, I don't know which one of the early ones was that they go through like the obstacle course in the movies. Like you can actually go through that in the game.
It's all right. Honestly, sometimes it's really frustrating because you have to control your verticality with the right stick and your horizontal side with the left. And so it just kind of leads you kind of going in these weird, like it's great in general, but when you're trying to fine tune it to get exactly where you need to go, it kind of gets frustrating after a minute.
84 Metacritic, people.
and you know what the crazy thing is?
Disrespecting the heck out of it for some nitpicks, but reality is I feel like I need to be harsher on it for those reasons, because so many people are championing it. To be like, all right guys, how much of this is nostalgia and how much is it not really well put together in some ways?
I mean, let's be honest here. If this was like in just a generic game, didn't have any ties to Harry Potter, this would be a 4 to 5 out of 10. Basically, it'd be a 4 or 5 out of 10, and like it would have been blown by. Like it would have been given. Like the game Dead Wanted just came out. Like Wanted Dead. Sorry, I don't know why I reversed it, but like that it absolutely got drug out into the street and beaten, absolutely beaten. And and Hogwarts Legacy would have gotten that same treatment if it didn't have the Hogwarts IP on it. But like I like this game. I like it. I don't think it's perfect, and I also feel like this game's half baked. Like I feel like this game feels like basically like the start of what this game could have been, like what this series could be. Like if they announced like a sequel to this game or announced another game,
I can't imagine they would, considering how much it's selling.
Oh, it's going to. Yeah, I mean, it's going to. They should do nothing else in the future but Harry Potter at this point, based on sales. But like, this should be a stepping stone into what we consider like the Arkham asylums of Harry Potter. Like this feels like it's just like the gateway into what we actually really want at a Harry Potter game. This doesn't feel like it's the one though.
Yeah, it's so funny because obviously I played way less than you guys have. You guys have unlocked way more. I feel a little bit more impressed by this game that you guys see, and I wonder if that's because I'm not a big Harry Potter fan. I see it from these are the guys that used to make Disney Infinity and the Cars games and a bunch of other stuff before this. And
don't knock that Cars game on PS2 though. That was fun.
Yeah, the same people. So and that's the thing. Like, and those games were good for what they were, because in that licensed like lower tier stuff, and then seeing them push above their weight with this one.
I'm an indie guy, so I'm always a champion of like I love to see someone punch above their weight. You know that, but like I feel like this has the open world kind of games where like the game starts off extremely linear. It's a very tight experience, and then when it opens up, it kind of like loses itself as it gets like more open. This is that prime example. Yeah, like where you're starting off, I think the game is magnificent. Like the way you start off all the way into.
Yeah, I haven't even gotten out of Hogwarts, just to give an idea.
That's
I haven't explored the world. I haven't gone to like different areas. Hogwarts itself just feels magical. The little details you see inside of that castle.
Hogwarts itself is easily the best part of the entire game.
Oh yeah. I'm like that part that lead up to where like you're in the forest and then you're like and Professor Fig is like, oh my goodness, I can't believe we're here, and then you start to hear the music, just that music, and then it starts to pan out and it shows that you're at Hogwarts.
And me not being the hugest fan, but knowing the movies and seeing that, I was like, oh, they nailed it. It's like they nailed it. How I like people like respecting like source material to be nailed in a game. And that's been more of my impression instead of all the comment that I'm hearing that I'm pretty sure I'm gonna hear now and feel it now going into it. And just having the reference that what you have early on is like, oh, I like how it feels in the trigger. I feel it's like snappy, especially because Forspoken could be a little janky in the way that you move that different magic, especially coming from that to this. Like I feel the premiumness of this game more than I did Forspoken in a way. So
I understand that. Yeah. That first 3 to 4 hours is probably the best 3 to 4 hours that I've felt in any video game this year. Like it feels really good. It's tight. Yeah. That story has intrigue. There's mystery there. As far as like that first 3 to 5 hours, when it opens up, you sort of like you lose a little bit of that luster in the main story as well, like that main kind of story, and it's because that main story, as like the more you learn about it, the less strong it becomes. Like it doesn't. Whereas Hi-Fi Rush, you feel like the game starts off at a breakneck pace. It's like,
and it keeps it with a few dips.
Yeah, with a few dips there, and it has like what that story is, and they like commit to actually telling it. Here they like the story doesn't quite match all the world around it. It's almost that Skyrim effect to where like, hey, you're the chosen one, but let me go off and do like 50 different things that don't really matter to like the being the chosen one, and then you come back at your own leisure.
And that's always a big problem with open worlds, is like it's hard to maintain like narrative momentum when you're given all these different options to do different stuff that don't really matter to the main stuff unless it's like intentionally made to matter. Kind of like why I like being able to do side quests in God of War and God of War Ragnarok. Everything feels like everything fits together well, like thematically and story wise. If you're able to do that, even if you ignore them, you're missing a big part there.
For that kind of example is many of the side quests are just an intro to a collectathon.
Oh yeah, it is.
It's like, hey,
they're fetch quests.
Little thing, but then it's like, hey, keep an eye out for 50 more of these, and then it's like,
doesn't this have like 1,000 collectibles from what I heard?
I'm sure it's a lot because there's the keys, there's the demiguises, there's the pages that you have to collect. And the fact that progression is tied to like do X of this item, and then you're like, oh, you've leveled up now, or oh, you've gotten your inventory, you've gotten your ancient magic cooldown faster, whatever it is. But it's like you have to do so many of those, even down to the Merlin trials. Once you go out to just, I guess, because that's not in Hogwarts, Alejandro, there's like these circular rock formations. You have to throw a consumable item onto it, and then you have to do one of like 2 or 3 different things to complete the trial. And then if you do a certain amount of those, that's how you boost your inventory. But it's not like every time you get an inventory slot, like doing the Korok seeds for Breath of the Wild, for instance. But it's like you have to get 5, 6, 10 of them, and then you get that set of slots available to you immediately. It's not like you have to really put in effort and then you get all of that at once after a certain amount of time doing it. So you just have to spend like 20-30 minutes going from one Merlin trial to the next, if that's what you want to do, to actually get a benefit out of it. So it's oh man, I feel like we woke up and we chose Violent Sebastion for this.
No,
it's funny because like I'm enjoying the heck out of it and I want to go back and play it later on today. But then it's like it almost has to be said out of that as a disclaimer of like, all right, listen, it actually, like, without the Harry Potter side of it, this would suck. But being that we both love it so much, we're just selling out super hard because this is exactly what we've been looking for several decades.
Yeah. But now I think you put into perspective the perspective of Travis Northup, their reviewer over at IGN. He was very critical in a lot of that text, and he still loved the game.
Yeah.
There can be that nuance. You can tear something up, but you can still love something that you can even know the things that can be better. So
Still don't think I would have given it a 9 out of 10, but
no, this is the most 7 out of 10 game like you could possibly play.
I remember we said that for Forspoken too, and there's like maybe
now Forspoken
further.
Yeah, because to me Forspoken was a 7. This is definitely an 8 for me, just so far. With it.
I think at this point I would bump Forspoken down to like a 5, and this would be a 6.
I can completely get on board on that because like I do feel like it does a lot of things better than Forspoken in the dialogue, the nuance, like it fits the world better versus like Forspoken's world.
The world is way more alive, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, for sure. But like what I do think like they both kind of like fault on is like the way their open world kind of works in like the systems that they use. I don't feel like neither one of those are as fleshed out as like you would want a fantasy open world game to be. Like I would still pick like Dragon Age Inquisition right now as being a better fantasy game than both of these IPs.
I don't know if I would go with that one.
I love Dragon Age though, but I'm a huge Dragon Age guy. But
give you perspective, my favorite Dragon Age is 2 still, and that's the one that a lot of people really crap on. I know. Part of that is because I didn't go back to Origins until way later.
Origins still holds up.
It's not going to work that way.
I really liked Inquisition at first, and then it just same thing where like there was so much to do and so many places to go that I just adding that to like the combat that was like an MMO to it, just like I think I lost steam on it. Characters were great, I'll give it that. Story was really interesting. Now, anyway, we're not talking about Dragon Age today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see what you mean where it's like that is like a real fantasy world that's like a lot more seamless, despite the fact that it has distinct boundaries on the areas you go to. It's like that's like a solid zone to find things in. You explore, you adventure, you have fun with it. And this is like, I don't know, it just doesn't really feel the same way in some ways after a while. It's like that meal that you eat at a buffet and you're like, this is delicious. And then you get 4 more plates of it and you're like, I think I'm good now.
Yeah, you know what I describe this as is like fast food versus eating at a steakhouse. Like this feels like fast food to where like if you get it, it'll fill you up. You're happy to eat it. It's like, but the more you eat it, the lesser it seems. And like it also feels like it is just a comfort meal to where like I like me and my wife, we go to like the same fast food place probably on a weekly basis. Yeah. And like we know what we like. It feels good to eat. It's like quick and it gets that feeling out, so to speak. It's like, but going and enjoying something like a God of War Ragnarok feels like eating at a nice steakhouse. But one criticism I think we haven't even broached is like this game feels like it was made to have a morality system that it just does not have.
And they eliminated it.
Yeah, that they got. That's a whole
different thing. It feels like games are just moving away from moralities. It's so funny because Infamous was all about it was binary, but it had a morality system. You're good and evil, and now it feels like we barely get any games that give that.
I feel like I could play the devil's advocate if needed on the concept, because when you have like a binary, for instance, good and evil, whatever, like Fable style almost, you miss out on those ideas where like Mass Effect, here's a good example. So you would say probably Mass Effect's morality system's pretty good overall, you'd say. But
1 through 3, not Andromeda.
Yeah, no. We're not going to talk about Andromeda. That doesn't exist for my mind. So anyway, think of like Mass Effect 2, for instance. If you don't have like a 100% Paragon rating, you risk losing NPCs at the end of the mission. Why is you doing good things tied to the survivability of your people? It's like it's a good concept in theory, but if you don't want to just always answer the good like response to things. If you want to,
it makes it arbitrary
stuff. Yeah. But because like sometimes you feel like you want to have some gray area in there and feel like that's a true, genuine storyline. But when you're forced to do the good option to get a valid ending that's going to be the one that's canon, then it almost like it makes everything cheaper. Like you don't want to be the renegade anymore because you want to be able to use these NPCs in the next game, but you have to compromise your interesting story that you want to make yourself. Maybe you want to punch that one really mean dude at the Citadel in the face. Yeah. Maybe you want to shoot the other guy in the knee that one time, but you're not feeling like you're allowed to really go that route because you're
I feel why we're no longer see morality systems that can like completely change areas of a game is because like developers like Sucker Punch and even BioWare have mentioned that they put so much effort into the evil side and they only see like a very tiny percentage of people ever doing it, and you see massive amount of people choosing the good side because inherently humans are going to be good. Like our nature will take us the good side. So that's why many people don't want to bother with doing a morality system, because then it requires you to do another side that has to be as fully featured as another side, and then you risk knowing that you're gonna have a lot of gamers that are just not gonna engage in that other side. So, and now that game development has become way harder and takes longer, they have to like make those hard cuts.
It just takes more resources,
which sucks because I miss having like that variety. At least if there's something like replaying Infamous told me, it was like, man, it was cool knowing that there was another kind of side of the game that I knew was there, that I had like a reason to play it again.
Yeah. So let me push back just a wee bit on this game having the morality system. It's because like the IP itself has a morality system. I'm like, you can't you can read the books, you can watch the movies, and if you use any of the unforgivable courses, it's a one-way trip to Azkaban. Like there's no gray.
That's what they say.
It's a one-way trip to Azkaban. There is no gray area there. But like you can, I agree with you, Paul. Like you can have, and you can have nuanced missions and nuanced systems to where like there should be like a gray option. There should be like a middle of the road there to where like, because we are humans, we do act differently depending on how like the situation changes us. But like this game, so to speak, like everything about it, like Hogwarts itself is a morality system. They have an honor code system that deals with house points. You do something bad, you get house points. You do something good, those house points get taken away.
By the way, like, is it true there are 95 Merlin trials?
Yeah, probably. It's a lot.
That's like
of
the most common thing to do out there that you find, and they're like immediately shown on the map and everything. It's like you just know where to go find them.
Yeah, because I just saw Paul Tassi from Forbes tweet. I will say I don't think you need 95 anything in your open world map.
No,
and people responded Merlin trials.
Yeah, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer on like the whole morality system. It's just like the Hogwarts itself. You don't name a game Hogwarts Legacy and like you have to like and don't adhere to the rules of Hogwarts. And the crazy thing is like they have missions to where like they stay in those missions. Hey, like you did something bad, you lose house points. But if you go look at your house, like Glass, it stays the same. It's unaffected at all. Like it's wasted dialogue, it's wasted like nuance. You added lore there, but you didn't adhere to the rules of that lore. So I'm like,
I might be mistaken, but didn't like the Order of Phoenix or Half-Blood Prince actually have a house point system that you could like?
Yeah, affect? I believe so.
Yeah, I think I remember that. Like, depending on how you answered things or did things, it could like help you win the House Cup at the end of the year. But yeah, it's like to your point with that. There was something I was going to say along those lines. Yeah, you could have Moody, for instance. That's a good example of like a gray wizard. Even though in Goblet of Fire it was body snatching, whatever, but that was like the morality of Moody even before all that happened. He was allowed to use certain curses in the right context. So like I feel like if they added that extra level of like, all right, listen, we're really in some dire straits, like you might need to use that really bad curse, like I don't know what's the deal. And then like after at the end Deathly Hallows, they mentioned that they were forced to use the Cruciatus curse on each other to like learn how to defend against the dark arts. And so like there's clearly gray area allowed in the world that you could like push for that almost and like figure out some areas that they decided to not do it at all. Even like I'm glad they didn't do a simple, okay, you're good or you're evil, because the dark arts spells are kind of dope, honestly. But
They are.
like for gameplay wise. But then at the same time, it's like, if they had done that, I would have liked that they really like introduce a new concept of like, well, maybe you just need to do what needs to be done. And honestly, maybe Avada Kedavra is like a little more humane than the weird ancient magic curse that just rips people in half and stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's like, you do some really messed up stuff to NPCs in this game in the combat, and like, why is that worse? You maybe like clarify why Avada Kedavra is still worse, or don't give me that up as like it's so evil. Like, okay, buddy, calm down.
I'm gonna be real with you. I'm like, you could have solved all this if you had better writing in your game. Like, if they said like, hey, like you're a like, hey, we're giving you a Aura's license, or you have license to use. You have license to use any curse you have, as long as, because you're like the chosen one, quote unquote, and we need you to get to the bottom of this mystery, and also your life is in danger. Hey, we're giving you this license. You use any spell at your disposal.
Like you need to defend yourself because you got some really messed up people coming after you. Like, you're a child, but you're also going to die if we don't allow you the authority to do this thing. Almost,
Boom.
It's like, that would be really cool. You have a freaking Aura's license for a 15-year-old going around solving mysteries and like getting to the bottom of all this. The fact that what's the name of the dude that picks you up? It starts with a P. We said it earlier. The dude,
Professor
that, like,
Fig.
Yeah, Fig. That's what I'm. Why did I say P? Anyway, like, he does nothing the whole time. He just kind of comes to you with problems, and you're just like, but what about this? I could solve this problem myself. And then you just go off and do the thing yourself, and Fig is just left behind half the time.
Useless.
It's
absolutely
like,
useless.
He gets you into this, and like, you theoretically have no idea what magic was before your 15th birthday when you get this owl, and yet you know more about this whole world than this professor. It's like, clearly, like, if you just reframe the whole story, like maybe you're a prodigy student this whole time, you get a couple of spells to start off, and then they just ramp it up from there. Like, it explains the whole idea of like, you don't have to make this whole new thing of it's a new 5th year student coming, and you just it's a whole different setup. They've just a little bit more focus on that writing side of it, instead of what they ended up doing. But yeah, Alejandro, you got something?
Yeah, just hearing everything about that, I'm like, am I at an advantage for not really caring about Harry Potter to be able to like really enjoy this? Because
for sure, for sure,
you are absolutely in a better position.
Yeah, because I'm like, God.
I mean, the crazy thing about it is, it's like, sorry, I'll let you go in a second, Paul, but like, the crazy thing about it is, it's like, you have an Aura on your staff, like a former Aura, like Professor Sharp is like your potions professor. He is a licensed Aura. I'm like, you could have had him be the Professor Fig of all this, to where like he is the one who guides you, and like he is the one who's teaching you advanced spells to defend your spells. Like, right? Why? I'm like, the game feels like it's poorly written in the sense that where like it felt like someone who's not a Harry Potter fan wrote a lot of this game, to where like they didn't think about like some of the complexities of how the world works, versus like this game feels like it was written and like, we need to get to point A to point B because this is the story we want to tell, versus like, hey, does that story fit into the lore? Like God of War Ragnarok, like every side story, every story fit into the lore that is like that Norse mythology, that version of Norse mythology. At least this game feels like a game that has Harry Potter aesthetics, like a lot of like Harry Potter like lore into it, but like the lore, like the rules that were set in place in this world are like loosely adhered to.
Yeah, and especially introducing something like ancient magic, which doesn't exist in the world or the lore at all. Just kind of like, yeah, you can do this special thing. Okay, have fun. And it's just, it doesn't really make all that much sense in the end. And it's really that situation where a lot of people, like for the Star Wars days, where you're like, you can't make this media thing. That doesn't adhere with this lore detail. And the problem is that Star Wars is kind of really well made, so you can kind of just do stuff like that. But Harry Potter is just held by such thin threads with its world that if you add like any sort of critiquing lens on it, you can't really come up with a justifiable reason for stuff. That's the same way you can for like Star Wars. And I think that's just where it comes down to it. It's just not a well enough built thing. And my last statement on it is, where my Percy Jackson game at, y'all?
Man, that would be
That's all
dope.
I'm saying. Because that world is way better made than Harry Potter. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh man,
At least it doesn't
the
have
Harry Potter in me.
controversy.
Oh, the Harry Potter in me
We're
feels
going
like
to revive that. I mean, if we're getting a Percy Jackson TV show, this is now the time to re-bring up that fight. I used to be on the opposite side of that, Harry Potter all day, and now I'm like, I've been reading through those Percy Jackson books. That's a pretty solid, simple meal, well made compared to all that we got with Harry Potter. And
I want to, like before we go, and because I know we have other news stories, but I want to say that, I've come across extremely negative, but I've really enjoyed this game. Like I love playing in this world. I like a lot of elements into it. I feel like it's half baked and I want more because like the bar, like if I hear a game's a 9 out of 10, I'm like, I expect it to be like a 9 out of 10 ass video game. Like I expect it to be like,
and here's the thing, like Jedi Fallen Order was that also.
Yeah,
and I can even also try to level some of the same complaints because that game was also very half baked. I just loved it a lot because I loved Star Wars. So
yeah, I think like revisiting it after patches, I think it's like an 8 for Fallen Order, that is. But then at the same time, it had a lot more that vibed than something like this, where like you didn't have to deal with any of the gear, any of the fluff. And even the open world was a meticulously crafted Metroidvania.
Yeah, it was a Metroidvania. This is an open world that definitely is has very witchery aspirations, based on like some of the way you do dialogue. Yeah. So,
which none of it matters either. That's another thing.
And then I think this is also like gonna be like the first game bump of. We haven't had a Harry Potter game since the horrible Deathly Hallows games in like almost a decade. So. Everything will seem like initially more impressive when you consider everything that came before.
And we never had a game that was above like a 7 out of 10 in the Harry Potter universe.
It's another case of like starving for stuff. Sebastion, were you going to say something else?
The only thing, and I don't want to be rude when I say this, is like I don't want anyone to.
This is Alejandro here. Yeah. He has been so rude for just about everything.
Yeah, but I don't want to be rude to like developers. Shout out to Avalanche Studios for like making this. This game is like. This game is very impressive. It's just like I almost asked myself, I'm like, this is impressive for their first game. We talked about that at length. I'm like, for their first real major game to where it's not just like a throwaway license game that is associated with the movies. Like this is very impressive. I almost feel like though, like I would have loved to see what like a grand project from Insomniac could look like if they were given this lore, because the way they did Spider-Man, like there is no loose threads.
And I think to me that's what makes this game more impressive in a way that they didn't have first party like focus and budget. This was a multi-platform game. Yeah. So the fact that this has that, like I want the love and care that you can see in this game. Maybe not like you can criticize it like in the minutia and all that, but when you see this is what you want your licensed games to look like. Like, this is exactly what you want them to feel like. Presentation-wise, it's
immaculate.
Yeah, it's good. It is really good. I love like how many different options they gave you with performance modes, with performance modes with like the visual modes. Like it's great. Like
customization options as well.
Oh, for sure, phenomenal
atmosphere, especially delving through some of the dungeons and crypts and things. So it's like. I know we spoke so much about the things that frustrated us because of how much it's been talked about, I think, in some of those aspects. But I think
the thing is that it's like it feels like an honest conversation about this game cannot be had like right now because of whatchamacallit, like the controversy surrounding it. You're gonna have people pushing back against that controversy, so it may seem like they're overpraising to kind of combat the fact that many people already wanted this to fail in lieu of like all the controversies around the IP in a way. So, and the truth can be somewhere in the middle.
I'm gonna be honest here. I played like 20 hours of that in this game and haven't thought about that woman once. Like I'm gonna be real. Exactly, I haven't thought about that woman once.
That says a lot. That there is like it sounds like a very flawed experience from like when you're like very knee deep into the Harry Potter world, like how things could be better knowing like how that world works. But then when you like step outside and see what they've done, it's like as a first game, it's like shout out to Avalanche. So And obviously, imagine those things that they could add in a sequel now that they know that this game is a hit. Because they were in WB Games. You know, WB Games is the most unstable set of developers ever. Like, just in their recent output alone, like all the things that had been like taking forever to make, like Gotham Knights being a complete disappointment, like Suicide Squad seeming like it's gonna be one now that we know that it had live service pinnings and all of that. So now they know that they had a game that has been, for the most part, very well received by many. Like, it has a very high like user score. Rarity here, like a 9.1 user score. We know that those can be real fickle and can be like trolled easily by bad faith arguments. Like, I can just imagine what the sequel will be. Like, I always am the big proponent of like, take the great foundation to start and then get a better sequel out, because you already got a nice base.
Yeah, and I think one of the glowing recommendations that each of us will probably give is like, we've all played a varying amount of time with this game, and all of us are excited to finish it. So I'm like, I can't say anything more than like shout outs to them for doing this. This is a really good game. It's not a great game by any means of the imagination. It has a lot of flaws, but it is what we play video games for, to have fun, and it's a fun experience.
Yeah. So we had like a few stories. I just want to cut just to one, because we kind of mentioned this game already in this conversation. So no need to do the press X for some news, Paul. Like, I want to read you this
all right,
real quick. So this is a story by Chris Cullen by VGC, from VGC. Kratos was originally going to have a different fate in God of War Ragnarok. Speaking to MinMax, you know them. Sebastian's Ben. What was his last name? I forgot. Ben Hansen. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he had Matt Sophos, the writer for Ragnarok, and someone else that also contributed to writing. So Matt Sophos was asked about the end of the 2018 God of War title, in which Kratos sees a mural that shows his death, suggesting a prophecy that could happen in the next game. Although the mural is shown again early in Ragnarok, Kratos ultimately doesn't die, and Sophos was asked if there ever were plans to actually kill him off. There was the earliest draft of an outline that we had come up with that we took to director Eric Williams, Sophos replied, revealing that in this draft, Kratos died in the Thor fight at the beginning of the game. He continued, and so he was gonna die, and then it wasn't a permanent death. What was gonna happen, and I don't care if we can tell this because it doesn't happen anymore, and this is all fanfiction at this point, he would get pulled out of hell essentially by Atreus. But it's now been like 20 years have passed. It was going to be a big time jump type of thing. So that was a version of it. Ultimately, Sophos explained Williams wasn't keen on going down that direction. The decision Sophos says was the right one. Eric was like, I don't want to do that. Kratos has died and come back from it too many times, and it'll feel a little bit too, oh, you said he was going to die, and oh, you just kill him, but he came right back, he recalled. The hook, the emotion, wasn't really going to be there, and he was absolutely right, and so that's why it didn't last very long. Sophos also added that the game's current ending, in which Kratos is still very much alive by the end, helped create a message to players that their fates aren't sealed. As we were developing the story, we knew we wanted it to be about letting go and changing, he explained, knowing that Norse mythology is all about fate and prophecy and everything, and we wanted to say, that's BS, you know? And nothing is written that can't be unwritten. As long as you're willing to make changes in your life, then you're not bound to fate. And so when we landed on that, when we know that was the story we wanted to tell, we knew that Kratos couldn't die. Because then it would be like, well, are you just going to say that Kratos couldn't change? And that would suck. So
I'm very glad that they made that change for sure. Mm-hmm. I know we're going to make similarities to a certain other big budget Sony game, but
yeah, that has a TV
before
show
we go into
going.
that route, it made me realize, because I knew that they were teeing that up so much in 2018, like Kratos would die in the next game potentially because we saw the prophecy for it. What a good kind of switching things up on people instead of oh yeah, this is totally what we set up was going to happen, and it happened. All right, congratulations. How are you going to make that interesting? You know, so it's almost, and somehow tying it to a really positive message in the spite of all that, where it's like, yeah, you know what, like, you can make changes in your life, and as long as you're able to do that, nothing has control over what happens to you. And I really like that concept where you're really like, that was Kratos' whole thing, fighting fate, fighting gods and all that, but then also still being a slave to them at the end of the series, in a certain way. I really like changing that up for sure. What are y'all's thoughts on all that?
Yeah, you, Sebastian. I want to hear it.
I would have been fine both ways as far as like, as long as I trust them to tell an interesting story. And, like if there's one studio I trust to give us like a wowing story, it is that studio. So I'm like, they could have made both ways interesting. I'm perfectly happy with the way God of War ended. I'm like, Ragnarok made me cry. I'm like, I loved the narrative in that game. And and they left a lot of room to do other things in the future for not just Kratos, but other characters in that lore. So I'm like, I'm fine with the way it ended. I'm like, I would have, if they had like an alternate ending to where it really wasn't the real ending and they showed us that, I would have been perfectly fine with that too. If hey, we're just going to put out the cutscenes from this alternate ending and let you see how that would have paid off, I'd watch it. But, like, kudos to them for, being open enough to say this in the interview, because like most people keep that stuff like very tight to the chest.
Yeah. True. And we know that that's just not going to happen now because you basically spill it out. I have been very vocal of how much I love The Last of Us Part 2. I adore that game. I adore the story of that game. I adore how that game made me miserable in a good way, because it was like such an impactful story. This coming a little too soon from that, like another like killing the main protagonist at first, even though in this case he would have come back in a way, I think would have like started the story kind of like around a similar kind of tale. And this just feels like the much better, much more fulfilling and much more cathartic story they ended up telling. Was they subverted, it was kind of like, in a world that hates the subversion of expectations, I feel God of War Ragnarok was the right way to subvert, because it subverted in a way that into something that Paul absolutely loves. Like, he loves when everything can, because Paul is like, there's a reason why Paul's favorite superhero is Superman, because Paul hates like the cynicism of the world. He likes positive bias being thrown, and I'm someone that, to me, like, depending on how you do positivity, that can sometimes feel either too corny or something that says, oh yeah, sure, positive, yeah, it's something that it's easy to forget in my mind. And I feel like Ragnarok is one of those rare ones that they put that positive spin while also delivering such great message that impacted and can leave you crying. Like, I was also one that game had me in tears many times throughout that story. It's like just the catharsis of Kratos and Atreus like defying that fate. And I'm just glad that they were able, and I bet you they pivoted from this way before they saw the reaction to The Last of Us Part 2, because they started working this game in like 2018. Part 2 came out in 2020, so I bet when they saw that SpongeBob meme you sent me, Paul.
It's just the sigh of like, ooh, I really dodged a bullet on that one. I definitely think so overall. I just like you said, Sebastion, I think you are right. Like, this is the group that could make that very powerful no matter what they had chosen. I understand their reasonings why they didn't, even unrelated from the other game. That it's like, yeah, no, that would have kind of like gone along with the thing that we're not trying to sell for our last big like message for this game series. And I think I like it as well because it adds for a lot more of a globe-trotting adventure style thing, where instead it's like, okay, your objective is once again set up from the very beginning, and that is your goal for the whole game. Anything else is just distracting you from that, get Kratos back from the afterlife kind of a thing. Which that was a big problem people had with 2018, which is obviously up to interpretation for a lot of people. But the idea of, all right, go to the mountain, and then constant problems trying to get to that mountain versus all of that, and then getting to that and saying, no, that wasn't the mountain, it was this mountain.
This fountain. And then,
it's like
we're there in the mountain, and then we're gonna like have like a discussion. Here comes the dragon, and we're going down to this
so
thing.
That kind of being fresh in people's minds, I'm sure they were also like, well, that's kind of the same basic structure, let's go something different. And I'm very glad that they kind of went in such a different direction. Also, just I wasn't expecting the whole coming of age idea of Atreus, and like the idea of watching your son grow up and realizing you have to change the nature of your fatherhood to that son. That's like, I'm not a father, so I didn't really understand how that felt, and now I feel like I experienced it by watching that happen.
Because we know what like the coming of age of Atreus' adolescence is. It's like, as people were formerly youngsters and stuff, and now we're adults like near our 30s. It's Well, you're in your 30s, Paul. I'm becoming 30 this year, and I don't know how old you are, Sebastian.
I'm 31.
There you go. So I'm the last one. I'm the last remnant here before I hit 30 this year. So yeah, and to me, it's like I'm just glad that to me, like the story that The Last of Us Part 2 told, it's like I think it's more special because I know it's the only game that's going to attempt to tell that kind of story. Having another game that to try to capture those same beats would have like diluted because be like, okay, now we see people copying that. So I'm glad that these two games like exist in my mind and complete polar opposites in a way that works. And I'm just so happy. Like I want to go back to Ragnarok, but I'm kind of like, New Game Plus is coming soon. New Game Plus is coming soon. Just hold on. Just hold on. Just hold off. Just hold off. There's other
That's
games
what I'm holding off for.
Yeah, there's like other games that are playing. I had to play Hogwarts. I have a certain game that comes out next week we're going to read about. I have to be review. I have 2 back-to-back reviews coming. So, Paul, tell us about the game releases for the week of February 19 to February 25, 2023. All
right. Gotta get myself prepared for this one because if anybody listening doesn't realize it's a long.
Yeah,
you might need to take a swig of bubbly there.
Yeah.
I finished off my bubbly. I gotta drink some water whenever I'm getting tired on this one. All right, so game releases for February 19th through 25th of 2023. Aka R. There we go. For PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. I'm glad I'm not the one getting construction near my house. On February 21st, Atomic Heart on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC on February 21st, also on Game Pass. I know that much. Like a Dragon Ishin, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC on February 21st. Digimon World Next Order on Switch and PC on February 22nd. And all of these afterwards, except for certain point I'll tell you, are for the recently released PlayStation VR 2 on February 22nd. And those are After the Fall, Altair Breaker, Cities VR Enhanced Edition, Cosmonious High, Demio, Drums Rock, Dyschronia Chronos Alternate, Fantavision, Firewall Ultra, Gran Turismo 7, Horizon Call of the Mountain, Job Simulator, the 2050 Archives, Jurassic World Aftermath Collection, Kayak VR Mirage, Kizuna AI Touch the Beat, Moss and Moss Book 2 Bundle. Oh, Moss and Moss Book 2 Bundle. There we go. NFL Pro Extra, Pavlov VR, Pistol Whip, PlayStation VR 2. And, oh, wait, no, that's the actual thing. Puzzling Places, Resident Evil Village, Res Infinite, Song in the Smoke, Star Wars Tales of the Galaxy's Edge, Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, excuse me, Synth Riders, Tentacular, Tetris Effect Connected, The Last Clockwinder, The Last Brigade, The Tale of Onogoro, Thumper, Townsman VR, Vacation Simulator, What the Bat, Zenith The Last City, and Zombieland Headshot Fever Reloaded. And the last ones not included in that VR2 list were Blood Bowl 3 for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC on February 23rd. Company of Heroes 3 on PC for February 23rd. And, oh, wait, we got a few more. Sons of the Forest on PC for February 23rd. Clive and Wrench on PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Switch, and PC on February 24th. Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe on Switch for February 24th. And lastly, Octopath Traveler for PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Switch, and PC on February 24th.
I don't think we're ever going to see a list this massive in a long time. Imagine having to review, because obviously they sent PlayStation VR 2s to some influencers and the media. They're going to be posting their reviews soon. Imagine having to cover all those games.
Oh my goodness. Imagine.
I bet they're not. I'm like, yeah. I bet they're only going to play Horizon, Call of the Mountain, and call it a day. And maybe at that point, I'm trying to look at the list and see any other game that I think like major big outlets are going to play.
Yeah. So they have the advantage that they have a bunch of re-releases here that they can just like play it briefly and be like, it's the same game. It's just better here, unless it has like completely different new content. My thing with this is that I didn't buy PlayStation VR 1. I did try it at my university. Got a little bit of a headache. VR is just not for me. It's like
Same.
I want it to be because it's like the idea is so cool. I remember playing VR like arcade machines. those like mech games that you will like put the visor and then like be turning around. It's like there's something really cool about that. It's just that, especially right now, the PSVR 2 is $549, and there's the bundle with Horizon that's like $600. So it's like that's too much money. Like that's right now too much money, and I don't know if like, what if this doesn't sell? Then where will the support go? Especially because they're overpricing this compared to the first PSVR. So to me, with this list, Atomic Heart. I'm reviewing Atomic Heart. Like I might get a code for Atomic Heart because Season Gaming is like it's contacting PR for that one, but I'm still gonna review it even if I don't get that. So that's it for me for this list. What's like interesting for you that's not VR, Paul?
Like you said, Atomic Heart is definitely the one that I'm going to for sure play out of this. But I know a lot of people, like we said before we started recording, really champion the Digimon World Series. I know there was a couple of these, like Gran Turismo 7 seems built perfectly for that.
And that's the thing, like if you own Gran Turismo 7, that's a free update. That's actually really cool. Like some of these games that are here, they have like free updates if you already own them to be able to play that. Because
Sons of the Forest, that's the Forest 2.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know some friends that are going to be really into that one. So big day for survival buddies. Obviously, Kirby's Return to Dreamland coming out, Octopath Traveler 2. Those are like the main ones that I think a lot of people are going to be hyped up for. Beyond that, Sebastion, is there anything talking to you out of that list?
Of course, What the Bat. Like, What the Bat really speaks to me on a very personal. Nah, I'm playing with you. I'm
I just love that there's a game called What
You
the
had
Bat.
me for like 2 seconds. I was like, dang, is that like a hit or something? Shoot.
Nah, man.
It does look indie-like, but it's PSVR too, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real with you. I'm not a PSVR kind of person. I'm not a VR person in general. And then like I'm looking at a lot of these games. Like I haven't played Octopath 1, and I'd feel almost compelled to play the first one before I played that one. But that's the only game that's kind of interests me out of like all these. I think Atomic Heart kind of like seems interesting, but like
that one, the advantage is that it's going to be on Game Pass. So
it is going to be on Game Pass. And I think one of the things that I like about it on a personal level is like the story behind it, like the fact that all this had to do with like the Ukraine war and all that kind of stuff. Like this studio had to deal with that. And then like you add to the fact that like the composer is donating like his fee to like the Ukraine.
Actually.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. Alejandro had to mute himself because of the construction noises.
Nah, it's all cool. They're donating their fee to the Ukraine crisis, and so I'm like, I think there's so much cool like heartfelt stories around this game. So I wanted to succeed on a personal like basis, and like I want single player games that are similar to Doom and Wolfenstein to succeed because I want more games like that. So absolutely. I'm gonna check it out. So
I want more shooters that are not live services. This is one.
Yeah, I want more campaigns. Yeah, I want more first person shooter campaigns. So I'm like, I like that genre. I think that genre is one that I hope doesn't go away, but it kind of feels like it's starting to. But like one of my favorite games of last year was Proteus, and Proteus is like a indie game that is very much like a cross between like Doom and like kind of like Halo a little bit, and it was one of my favorite experiences in the first person shooter genre of last year. And the fact that like so many people made really cool like maps in that game.
That was with like the pixel art kind of shooter, right? Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it looks like retro Doom, and like the fact that people made like a Waffle House map and people were playing in that.
Oh, that was this game. Okay.
Yeah, Proteus, and so I like first person shooter campaigns, and I want to see more of those. So I want Atomic Heart to succeed.
$20 on PSN.
It's a really good game. It is a really good game.
To buy.
It is a really. Do either of y'all have like Xbox Game Pass?
Is it on Game Pass?
Is it on Game Pass?
Yeah, that's like I think it's still on Game Pass to this day. So
why did I know that? I'm definitely gonna go download it then.
Yeah,
that is easy. I will definitely check that out if it's on Game Pass. Yeah, I think to y'all's points for sure. I think one of my favorite ways to experience narrative games is a first-person shooter somehow, because like BioShock really
first-person perspective.
Me. Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry, because it's really intimate. Despite its issues, I really love Metro, and like the deep like detail you can have whenever your face is right there. You get like a lack of jank almost when you do that. And I had like a renaissance of that when I played through Titanfall 2, just like watching how easy you can make animations and hands so expressive that you can really tell an interesting story.
Far Cry 3 and Metroid Prime, another example of how immersive it is, because you can also see Sam as like something's going through a person when you go into morph ball, and then you see like the camera go back into her visor, like because you're seeing everything through her eyes. And then you just feel so compelled, and there's something you don't stop playing because everything feels so immersive.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example of that. Yeah, but yeah, I just I think that's pretty much it on my thoughts for all of that stuff. Just
for such a long list, it's like such a long list for so little of interest for us. But I can't wait to see like the reviews for PSVR. I think they came out. They're coming out today. Like the actual machine, they were gonna review it and all that. So.
I do want to like give like the benefit of the doubt in some ways, because I do know several friends that do it very regularly. It has actually like very positively affected their health. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I've learned is no matter how bad you are disposed to it at first for your brain does just get used to it surprisingly fast, and then it just doesn't affect you anymore, no matter what really affects you. It's just a play for like 10 minutes every day kind of thing, and all of a sudden you're going to be like not even feeling it anymore apparently. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things I wish that I had the time and the space for. The space
is the big one right now where I'm at, where I usually play my games. I don't have the space for that, so but we'll see. Like, I hope Sony commits to this VR, because they did commit to VR 1 more than I was expecting, but the price never got quite right for me, so that just kind of passed me. Like, I wish I had played Astrobot Rescue Mission, especially how much I love Astro's Playroom, and Rescue Mission was basically that. So, and I've heard many great things of that, so we'll definitely see. And with that concludes this week's episode of the X Button. Sebastion, where can people find you?
Ladies and gentlemen, everyone, everywhere, you can find the Prince of Podcasts at the Single Player Experience Podcast, where we talk about dope single player games that you should be playing. We also have interviews with devs. We also talk about some really cool concepts in games. And, recently we've talked to industry leaders. I had a really cool guest on my show where he is the world renowned expert in all things Tarzan. We talked about like Tarzan as a video game. And
wait, the PS1 game? The one that was like a side scroller?
He was a consultant on that project, but we talk about he's been a part of like a lot of different Tarzan films recently. Like, he did the last one with Samuel Jackson. He was a consultant on that project. Mm-hmm. And so he and I were talking about what Tarzan would look like as a modern day video game in an open world concept.
Do you remember Tarzan Untamed?
Yeah, I do.
On PS2 and GameCube.
Is that the one that the entirety of it was just a button masher? Because one of those games for PS2 did irreparable damage to my hands.
Yeah, there were some like missions where you had to like be tapping the button and then do like a combination of things.
Yep. Yeah. I hate that game because of that reason. I just sit there doing this for hours. Oh man, maybe that's why I have these issues with my hands. I would shake their hand, except you got
the hook hand now.
I got the hook hand.
We had people like Matt Hatchett, who's the author of How to Make a Video Game by Yourself.
That's awesome.
We had him on the show, and we've had different devs who just do deep dives on their indie games on the show recently. So, the show's growing. I love everything it's becoming, and I want to thank y'all for being a part of it. And I hope to have y'all in the episodes really soon. Yeah. So thank y'all for having me on the show today.
Yeah, always let us know when, and we can try to make it work. Paul, where can people find you?
As always, y'all can find me at Dork of Art on Twitter, and also Dork of Art on YouTube, because it sounds like any video of me breaking a video game is going to have to go there after that whole update thing goes live. That hasn't already. Yeah. But that's where you can find me usually. Yeah. But if not, you can find me here.
Yeah.
Where can they find you, Alejandro?
A_Dro Segovia on Twitter, A Segovia on Hive, Alejandro Segovia 93 on Instagram, and my written content at both thecriticalcorner.com whenever I write there, and my recent reviews over at seasongaming.com. So, always a pleasure getting to have you all here. Like, Sebastion will have a one-on-one episode pretty soon when Paul starts moving, like in a couple of weeks. So,
oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah.
But thank y'all again for having me on.
Yeah, always a pleasure having you on, and for you coming through, Sebastion. So, and you pulled through because you were able to say more about Hogwarts because I couldn't. So it was just gonna be. So you and Paul got to like carry that for me. So I felt like a little weight lifted.
I want to hear your thoughts as you play more, because I'm very interested if like your lack of knowledge about that helps you experience it in a positive way, or if you end up souring at some point.
Yeah,
but I really hope it doesn't sour it because we talked about it in such a negative light.
I have this thing that sometimes when people are very negative about a thing, I tend to go the opposite way. So
I noticed what for smoking.
Yeah, exactly. So, but not just for spite. That's just how I feel sometimes, because it's like you put it yourself. It's like, is it that bad? And then you play it. It's like, no, this is not that bad. That's how I was with Gotham Knights. It took me like after 2 months away from ever finishing that game, being like, you know what, this shit kind of ugly. So.
I was about to say, I'm like, I'm a huge Batman fan as well, as somebody should be brought up on charges for Gotham Knights.
Yeah.
I'm like, somebody did me a disservice on that one.
Our friend Zach, you don't know it because he did the art for our show, and we have him in our chat that me and Paul have. Like, he felt like personally like affronted by Gotham Knights.
Oh, I can understand why.
Oh yeah, it's just like, especially because he's a big like the Bat family in particular, Nightwing in particular is like his absolute favorite hero, and unfortunately Nightwing has been done dirty in many ways, and Paul knows one specific way that I have retired by this point, but it involves garden shears. All I'll say. So yeah. But enough of that. So thank you everyone for listening to this episode. Hopefully that the construction sounds are not too annoying that I was able to try to mute myself for. And we'll see you all next week, and stay healthy, stay safe, have a great rest of February. We're recording on the 15th. We're already halfway through the month. Can you believe that? And
Press X
to play.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Peace out.